This week on The Watchman, we're in Washington, D.C. with one of Israel's greatest friends on Capitol Hill, Senator Ted Cruz, and he has a message for the enemies of Israel and America.
Using human shields is a war crime, it is grotesque, it is wrong, and we need to use every tool we have to stop it. It's a terror tactic, and the two countries most frequently targeted by it are Israel and America.
Plus, he nearly lost his life battling terrorists. Instead, this brave Israeli soldier took his life to even greater heights. Hear his miraculous story this week on The Watchman, only with Christians United for Israel and only on TBN. And welcome to The Watchman. We are here on a very hot and muggy day in Washington, D.C. They call this place the Swamp, but this is where legislation gets passed, where major decisions are made that affect Israel, that affect the U.S.-Israel relationship and your national security. That's why our team at The Watchman comes here to D.C. from time to time to bring you the pulse, bring you the heartbeat of the U.S.-Israel relationship. It is the most important relationship for Israel and likewise for the United States. Our relationship with the Jewish state is our most important relationship, not only geopolitically, strategically, but especially biblically. Thankfully, the U.S.-Israel relationship has never been stronger, and we've had some major legislative victories right here in Washington, D.C. over the past year alone. Think about it, folks. The U.S. Embassy has moved to Jerusalem where it belongs. President Trump has pulled the United States out of that disastrous Iran nuclear deal. The Taylor Force Act, which holds the Palestinian Authority accountable for its support for terror, that's passed both the House and the Senate. And now we have the issue of Palestinian refugees and the UN agency called UNRWA that is really perpetuating that Palestinian refugee problem. The Trump administration has also pulled funding from them. You're going to hear more about that a bit later in the show. But up first, when it comes to the U.S.-Israel relationship and keeping it strong and rock solid, no one works harder right here on Capitol Hill than Senator Ted Cruz. Senator Cruz is a steadfast friend of Israel and a strong voice on national security and foreign policy issues. He sits on the Armed Services Committee, the Judiciary Committee, and he is a great friend of our team at Christians United for Israel. I was honored to sit down with Senator Cruz at his office right here in Washington, D.C. to discuss the Iran threat, what's happening in Gaza, the Palestinian refugee issue, and why he is such a strong supporter of Israel. Take a look. Senator Cruz, thanks so much for joining us on The Watchman.
Great to be with you.
Great to have you, and what a time to have you. You've been such a forceful advocate against terror groups, Senator, like ISIS, Hamas, Hezbollah, which brings us to the Stop Human Shields Act, which you're advocating for here on Capitol Hill. Tell us a little bit more about it.
Well, this is bipartisan legislation that I've introduced that would give the United States the ability to sanction anyone who's facilitating human shields. So, for example, Hamas, Hezbollah have a terrible practice of using human shields and say they hire a construction company to build a home to use for human shields, to put people and missiles in the same place, to use people, to use kids as they've done. They put missiles in the basements of kindergartners. Well, any company that facilitates that, the construction company, the bank that lends the money to build it, this would give the U.S. government the ability to target them, to sanction them, and to stop those who are making it easier to use human shields from doing so, because using human shields is a war crime, it is grotesque, it is wrong, and we need to use every tool we have to stop it.
Yeah, and this tactic has been used not only against Israeli soldiers, but Americans as well in places like Iraq and Afghanistan.
That is exactly right. It is a tactic, it's a terror tactic. Yeah. And the two countries most frequently targeted by it are Israel and America. And this gives us far more potent tools to prevent that.
Senator, when we talk about Hamas and Hezbollah and these terror groups which oppose not only Israel but the United States, I think of Iran as the head of the snake. You've been such a forceful proponent of a tough stance against Iran, that disastrous Iran nuclear deal.
Yes.
Can you talk about how Iran not only threatens Israel, but threatens us right here in the United States?
The single greatest long-term national security threat we have is the threat of a nuclear Iran. The Ayatollah Khamenei, when he chants death to America and death to Israel, I think he means it. I don't think that is empty rhetoric at all. And the Obama-Iran nuclear deal, I think, was the most catastrophic national security agreement in decades. The single most important step on the national security front that President Trump has made is pulling out of the Iran nuclear deal. That deal sent billions of dollars to the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism. They have spent massive amounts of money murdering Americans, murdering Israelis, murdering our allies.
Another good thing the Trump administration has done is cutting funding to UNRWA.
Yes.
This Palestinian refugee issue, it might confuse some people, Senator. Can you break down for us that whole refugee issue and why UNRWA was such a flawed enterprise to begin with?
UNRWA, number one, it defines as refugees anyone who's even the descendant of someone who's a refugee. So you could be a grandchild or a great-grandchild, and you're deemed a refugee. There's no other place on earth that's not, in fact, what refugee means. And UNRWA has become just a snake pit of anti-Americanism and anti-Israel animus. I mean, it regularly just spews attacks directed at Israel. And so for a long time, I've been calling for the U.S. to stop funding it. We shouldn't be paying people who hate us to spread lies. And I'm very glad the Trump administration followed through and has cut off that money. That was the right thing to do.
Right. This seems like a great time for the U.S.-Israel relationship, Senator. After a rocky road under the Obama administration, obviously, you were a huge advocate also of the embassy moving to Jerusalem. Good things happening right now in the relationship. Could you fill us in a little bit more about how it's growing every day?
It is hard to find another area of foreign policy with a more dramatic shift than the U.S.-Israel relationship under President Trump compared to President Obama. Under President Obama, it had gotten really bad. I mean, the level of disdain, the level of contempt that the Obama administration had for Prime Minister Netanyahu and for Israel was really dismaying. And that is now night and day. It is a dramatically different look. It culminated in just after the November election, the Obama administration acquiescing in and I think effectively orchestrating UN Resolution 2334, which is one of the most shameful anti-Israel resolutions ever adopted at the UN Security Council.
The kick out the door in December 2016.
And it declared much of modern-day Israel to be illegally occupied territory, based on a lie. Declares the Jewish quarter in Jerusalem to be illegally occupied territory. It declares the Western Wall to be illegally occupied territory. Mind you, President Obama was quite happy to have a picture of him and a yarmulke at the Western Wall, but yet they orchestrated the UN condemning much of modern Israel. It's based on a lie. You know, I was there just a couple of months ago in Jerusalem when we opened our embassy. In the Trump administration, there was a vigorous argument. The State Department and the Defense Department both did not want the embassy moved, and they were fighting hard against it. I was leaning in vigorously, saying it's the right thing to do, and there were others. Probably my strongest ally within the administration on that push was Mike Pompeo, who at the time was the head of CIA. And the argument from those in the administration who didn't want to move the embassy is they believed that they were going to magically have Middle East peace, and that the enemies of Israel would be angry with us if we move the embassy.
They've already been angry for years and years, even before.
That was a point I made emphatically. It's not like they're thrilled with us now. They're trying to murder us today, so how much angrier can they get? By the way, the impediments to peace are not Israel. Nobody wants peace more than Israel. It is Israeli babies who are being murdered. The impediments to peace, we will not see peace in the Middle East unless and until the Palestinian leaders, number one, acknowledge Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state, and number two, abandon terrorism. I mean, right now the Palestinian leadership is in a unity government with Hamas, an avowed terrorist organization.
Paying the salaries of terrorists, rewarding them with lifetime stipends.
Their family. If you go and blow yourself up and murder innocent civilians, they'll pay you for it.
Up next, more with Senator Ted Cruz. How did a Southern Baptist from Texas become one of Israel's greatest defenders? Find out after the break.
In spring 2019, join Holocaust survivor and historian Irving Roth on a once-in-a-lifetime remembrance tour through Poland. His story of loss, survival, and hope will bring the pages of history to life as you walk through the streets of the infamous Warsaw Ghetto, the silent barracks of Nazi death camps like the one where Irving slept at Auschwitz, and the memorials to the heroes who risked their lives to rescue their Jewish neighbors from Hitler's evil plan. You'll be inspired and challenged to put your faith into action. You'll have the opportunity to interact with the local Polish Jewish community and meet with the daughter of a famous hero of the Holocaust, one of the righteous among the nations honored by the State of Israel. Take advantage of this rare opportunity to walk with and learn from Irving Roth as he takes you on a journey of his memories of life before, during, and after the Holocaust. To register for this historic trip to Poland with CUFI and Irving Roth, go to the CUFI website and sign up today.
How did you become such a strong supporter of Israel? You're a great friend of Christians United for Israel. Where did this all start for you?
Well, CUFI does an incredible job. Let me just say, Pastor Hagee is an incredible friend and leader and has made such a difference mobilizing millions of believers to stand for Israel. For me, there's several things. Some people ask, I get to ask this question a lot, how is it that a Cuban, Texan, Southern Baptist has become the leading advocate for Israel in the United States Senate? And, I'd say there's a couple of things. One, just growing up. I grew up in Houston. The elementary school I went to was half Jewish. And so when I was a little kid, I assumed that half of the world was Jewish. Half the kids half the people I knew were Jewish, so I assumed that was the case for the rest of the planet. I remember as a little kid something that had big, profound impact on me was the Entebbe raid. And I was a little kid when that happened, but to me, the Entebbe raid was Israel saying, you may take our citizens hostage, and they might even die, but you're gonna die. And I gotta say, that was a very Texan approach to foreign policy. I have for a long time wished that America had the clarity and strength in dealing with our enemies that Israel has to display. My father was born in Cuba, fought in the Cuban Revolution. He was imprisoned and tortured in Cuba. And he fled oppression, came to America, came to Texas seeking freedom. When he got here, he was 18, he couldn't speak English, he had $100 in his underwear. I was raised as a kid sitting at my father's feet, hearing stories of being a freedom fighter. And America, we're a nation that's been a beacon of freedom, a beacon of those fleeing oppression and coming seeking hope. Israel is exactly the same kind of beacon. Both nations, both America and the modern state of Israel, were formed for people fleeing oppression and coming seeking freedom of religion, the right to worship and seek out the Lord God Almighty with all your heart, mind, and soul, and the right to live free of persecution. And if you look at Israel, there is a powerful, powerful connection between our two countries, a connection that is biblical, to be sure, but a connection that is also powerful from our national interests. Sometimes when people are discussing American military aid to Israel, it's characterized almost in the sense of welfare, of helping out this down on its luck neighbor. I think that completely misunderstands what's going on. We give every year about $3 billion in military assistance to Israel. The national security benefits we get from that are more than tenfold. If we tried to replicate the intelligence advantages we get from our close cooperation from Mossad, it would cost tens of billions of dollars. Their enemies are our enemies. Those who hate Israel hate America, and those who hate Jews hate Christians. And so we have an overwhelming national security interest in standing strongly with Israel, and I'm very gratified that we have righted that relationship and made clear on the world stage that America stands unshakably with our friend and ally, the nation of Israel.
Senator Cruz, one major reason that relationship has been righted is your tireless work here in the Senate on behalf of Israel and America's national security. Senator, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you, and let me say to all the members of CUFI, thank you for your prayers every day, and thank you for your voice. Speaking the truth is powerful, and it makes a difference.
Thank you, Senator. Thanks again to Senator Ted Cruz for taking time out of his very busy schedule to join us and talk about these issues that are so important for the U.S.-Israel relationship and for you. Coming up, one Israeli soldier's miraculous story of survival. You will not want to miss this. Stick around.
This year, 25 countries were represented at the 2018 CUFI Washington D.C. Summit, the most ever in our 13-year history. They came and joined over 5,000 others in our nation's capital as we continue to stand in solidarity with Israel and the Jewish people. They celebrated and rejoiced at the annual Night to Honor Israel. At 4.3 million members, CUFI is the largest, most diverse pro-Israel organization in the nation. For Zion's sake, we will not keep silent. And for Jerusalem's sake, we will not be quiet. From near and far, we are one. From all over the world, we are united. We are CUFI.
And welcome back to the Watchman from Washington, D.C. Ofer Verfel is a courageous Israeli soldier who nearly lost his life battling Palestinian terrorists. All looked lost. He was down, but he was anything but out, and he has taken his life to even greater heights. Here is his remarkable story.
My name is Ofer Verfel. I served on the Israeli Navy SEALs. Most of our job is to attack a terrorist organization all over the Mediterranean Sea, West Bank and Gaza Strip. And we have a lot of skills to do that. First of all, we're learning how to swim well. Secondly, we started diving with special equipment. The operation that I wounded was happening in Nablus in 2004. The story about these two guys, Amjad Militat and Iman Faraj, they was the leader of the organization. They had on their hands the blood of around 30 Israeli that died. We arrived to the house in the West Bank at around 1 o'clock in the night. Nobody saw that we enter inside the city. We surround the house and we start to call them by microphone to go out and come to us, and we will take them with us and everything will be fine. But they decided to fight. We started to shoot each other. The first terrorist was Amjad Militat, and Amjad arrived really close to me. And we shoot each other. I was injured really badly on my left leg. I shot him to his chest, head, and after a few seconds he fell on me and died. And I was on my back and he was on me. And I just took out my gun and shot him just to be sure that he will not stand up again. The other one that was behind him was also shooting on us. My lieutenant, Moran Vardi, was trying to come to rescue me. The other terrorist, the second one, was shot him a bullet in his head, and Moran died. I was hearing it on my ear microphone, and it was really hard in that situation. We succeeded to see from where he shot on us, and after my injury, I shot him also and I succeed to kill him. I can remember the situation that the doctor went inside to my room and sat on my bed, and he told me, "Ofer, I'm really sorry, but you will not be able to walk again." And the first thing that I told him that, okay, it will be fine, I know. Something in my mind told me that, Ofer, everything will be okay. With legs, without legs. After my injury, I started to do a ski throwing. We rode backwards. I was in few competitions all over the world. I became 7 in the world. I was training to 2012 to London. Suddenly, I was feeling a lot of problem in my left hand. The bottom line of the story that I have a tumor in my spinal cord. I went to a doctor, and 2 weeks later I was already in a surgery. I have a lot of luck. They took it off. It's really hard to me to move the head, and that I cannot feel nothing in all this area. Nothing. I was happy that I came back home. No, I'm happy. I'm happy person. I cannot put a finger on something that's happened, but I realized that now I will not be anymore a warrior, like strong and run and fight and stuff. I started to use my brain, and I decided to build a new company. We developed a machine that milks on a battery. We wrote a patent on that in the States and in a few countries in Europe. It's a really small system. It's lightweight, especially for farmers all over the world. All my life is kind of a present, so I need to enjoy that. Every day when I wake up in the morning, I tell to my kids, look, you see, the sun is shining, everything is good. In 2009, my wife got pregnant. We did the IVF at the hospital, and it works too good to be true. December 2010, they born triplets, 2 identical boys and 1 girl. We became, in one day, a big family. It's amazing. In my dream, that's what I see in front of my eyes. I don't need anything, not money, nothing, just the family. And I know that I have everything in my life. Like, I'm really lucky person.
What an amazing story, and we are honored here at the Watchman to bring you the stories of the Israel Defense Forces, the truth about the most humane fighting force in human history, the Israel Defense Forces. Well, coming up after the break, my final thoughts from here in Washington, D.C. about the U.S.-Israel relationship and how you, yes you, can make a difference. Stick around.
Israel's amazing story of restoration, blessing, and divine protection during the last 70 years is proof that God's covenant with the Jewish people and the land of Israel is unbreakable. In 1948, God fulfilled His promise to restore the land of Israel to the Jewish people. For 70 years, Israel has shocked the world as it has survived endless wars and terror attacks and yet remained hopeful, successful, and compassionate. This year, please join CUFI in celebrating Israel at 70 and supporting the one and only Jewish state. Christians United for Israel created this Israel at 70 pin to honor the Jewish state's 7 decades of miraculous modern rebirth. Thank you for enabling CUFI to amplify your voice. Call Christians United for Israel at 210-477-4714 or go to cufi.org/watchman to receive your free Israel at 70 pin.
And welcome back to the Watchman. We are wrapping up here in Washington, D.C. And again, this is a crucial time for the U.S.-Israel relationship. Folks, we have a unique opportunity with a friendly administration here in Washington, D.C. to work in the light. And our team at Christians United for Israel is not resting on our laurels. We are capitalizing on this unique moment in really the history of the U.S.-Israel relationship, whether it's the embassy moving to Jerusalem, President Trump pulling out of that disastrous Iran nuclear deal, the passage of the Taylor Force Act holding the Palestinian Authority accountable, and of course, as we discussed today, that Palestinian refugee issue, UNRWA, and cutting funding to that flawed and corrupt organization. Our team at CUFI is at the tip of the spear. We are on the cutting edge of promoting, supporting this legislation right here in Washington, D.C. I think of Joseph, I think of Daniel from the Bible, and how God's people were in the halls of power in positions of great influence. I believe that our team at CUFI has a unique opportunity right now to do just that. And again, there is no more important relationship for America than the U.S.-Israel alliance. The book of Genesis chapter 12 verse 3 says very clearly, God Almighty will bless those who bless Israel. He will curse those who curse Israel. Guess what? Our team at CUFI is a Genesis 12 organization through and through. We are America's largest pro-Israel organization, 4.3 million members nationwide, growing every day. You see the phone number, you see the URL there on your screen. Join us, join this movement for such a time as this. Well, thanks for joining us today from here in Washington, D.C. Until next time, God bless you. And remember, never hold your peace.